Hey guys, Bidu here to tell you about the latest from Red Fang, Deep Cuts, out March 14th on Relapse Records. This album has 26 songs, an hour and 25 minutes in length, and this is a compilation studio album. They are an American sludge stoner metal band. Now, this is a compilation that celebrates 20 years of Red Fang. And the way they're celebrating it is by bringing all of their deep cuts into one single album, into one single place. Singles, B-sides, demos, covers, everything that the band has done and scattered it throughout their discography, perhaps without having a home for it, now finally sees the light of day. A place where all of these tracks can coexist with one another, allowing the fans to have a single place to go to in order to enjoy them. Now, the nature of this compilation actually allows the overall experience to be very dynamic and very fluid, because you're not going to get all the B-sides, you're not going to get all the singles, you're not going to get all the covers all bunched up together. There's a lot of diversity in terms of how they mixed and matched these songs in order to create more of an album experience and a lot less of a compilation vibe. And I think that's really important for the overall playability of the record. Specifically, if you're starting to sit down, press play, and you really want to go across all 26 songs at once. Having that playability is really important if that is the approach. Obviously, if you're consuming these songs individually, this plays less of a factor. But for those that really want to sit down and enjoy the anniversary of the band by listening to the record in full, the way they mixed and matched these songs really helps that fluidity, really helps that playability. Now, as far as sound is concerned, this is obviously the band's DNA across every single track, 26 songs, feeling very rugged, very fuzzy, very soaked in beer and weed. That's the best way to describe this sound, because I honestly feel like some of these songs were created with beer and weed as the catalysts to how the songs came about. And the album really captures that essence quite well throughout all of its 26 tracks. It's an album that depends heavily on the guitar sound, as you would expect, with a lot of fuzziness, a lot of grit, if you will, very rugged as the overall sound is, and that overall sound is really driven by that specific guitar texture and guitar experience that's always been the backbone of Red Fang. So on this album, you're going to hear all of that, but because of where these songs originated, perhaps bringing even more into the forefront a live experience. This album really feels live. It feels like a live record recorded in the studio. Then you look at the drums, you look at the bass. I love the bass sound on this record, on these songs. I love the mix that they created that really allows the bass to come into the forefront and add to the ruggedness of the songs, add to the fuzziness of the songs, and add that great texture to the overall sound experience, allowing perhaps songs that would be maybe a little bit narrow in sound because of how driven they are guitar-wise to have a little bit more width. And then outside of that, you have the drums giving it even more width with a more sense of clarity. The drums on these songs definitely have a different texture and a different approach from what the guitars are offering. Giving a little bit more clarity allows the overall balance to feel a lot better, to feel a lot more cohesive, not just depending on that guitar fuzz or bass fuzz to create what the soundscape of the album and of the individual songs is all about. And then the ruggedness and fuzziness doesn't end there. It transports itself into the vocal performance. I thought the vocals on this record were really interesting, specifically once you get into some of the covers. Creating almost their own DNA with songs that are not theirs, but they could be theirs, considering on how well they developed the tracks. And the vocals played a huge role in that. Sometimes a little bit more fuzzy, sometimes a little bit more in the forefront, sometimes a little bit more at the distance. All of these elements in order to create dynamics, internal dynamics within the songs, and then obviously creating dynamics throughout the track listing. And they were really intelligent on how they placed the tracks in order to make things a lot more interesting for the listener. And I think the listener, the fan of the band, is really going to appreciate this record. This record feels like a reservoir of what has been Red Fang over these 20 years. With songs that they've created, songs that have been lost, songs that have been out there in the ether, but never necessarily being together in a place where fans can go to and really enjoying them. So this compilation, this deep cuts, means a lot to the fans as it does to the band, I am sure. 20 years of Red Fang is definitely something worth celebrating. Now, as far as favorite songs goes, I picked 3 different styles of songs. I picked Antidote, that's the opening track. I picked Black Hole, a little bit more deeper into the discography. And then I picked Suicide, which is a cover, dust cover. Now, Antidote is the opening track on the record, and I honestly really enjoy this song. I feel like this song deserves to be the opener because it deserves a little bit more of attention. Not that the rest of the tracks don't, but this track has its own dynamics and definitely deserves to be right at the front of what the listening experience is going to be all about. The guitar is really pushing forward, great bass sound, great drums, creating at the beginning a little bit more of a rock and roll vibe, then moves into a more crusty punk sound. The vocals enhance these experiences, enhance these movements. The bass lines are absolutely killer on this track. And that kind of sets the tone for what the overall mix is going to be all about. The guitar solo on this track is chaotic, but chaotic in a sense that becomes impactful to the design of the song and to what the song gives. I love the way the track closes off on a heavier note, both musically and vocally. Then you have Black Hole, a song that also has great bass sound. It's overall a little bit more linear, a little bit more direct, and a little bit more compact. It still has movement, but it doesn't have a large bandwidth. It doesn't have a lot of ebbs and flows as Antidote perhaps puts forward. So it's a song that's a little bit more straightforward, a little bit more streamlined, guitars and bass working really well, but always feeling very narrow and very direct, and you always need songs like that as well on any record. But it's a great track all around. Last but definitely not least, like I mentioned, Suicide, a dust cover. I feel like this cover, of all the covers, is the best one because it has the DNA of the band, it has the DNA of the original song, but perhaps becomes a Red Fang song when you're listening to it. Specifically, if you've never heard the original, this becomes their song. It's just really well put together, really well crafted. I love the fuzziness of the guitars. I love the more clear pockets of rock sound, both coming from guitars and drums, clearing a little bit of that fuzziness out of the way. This creates ebbs and flows throughout the track and really creates also this incredible dynamic that perhaps you don't see in many other songs of bass and guitars working really well in parallel with one another to create the highway that becomes the song itself. This allows you to see a lot more movement within the track. It allows the track to be a lot richer, and then it has a great vocal performance attached to it. This is it, Red Fang Deep Cuts, out March 14th on Relapse Records. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Hit me up in the comment section. I'll see you all at the next one. Take care, guys.